Today, we return to the trail the Forester just couldn't do. Well, without a winch. And back for revenge, we're going to show what the Forester is really capable of. Although the Forester won't be going alone. Today, we are joined by another Subaru, a Subaru Outback XT, as well as the Gladiator. Throughout the adventure, we will climb up and over the mountain before heading back into the valley and down to the riverbed. Will we make it through the rough trail and over the rocks? Or are we going to be using the winch and the Jeep to help us? Join us today as we find out. What is up and welcome back everyone. Today we're back at McLean Creek doing the trail that we had fun about 2 months ago now. It's fall, it's nice fall weather, but we're here again with Austin and his Gladiator. He's just gonna show us up. And we're here with Rocky Mountain Outback and his pretty much brand new Outback XT, which is awesome. Looks really sweet and definitely gonna be interesting comparing that versus my very old Subaru Forester. So let's go ahead and hit the trail. After airing down all the vehicles, we hit the access road to the trail. And with the Subarus in their natural habitat, it wasn't long before we got to the trail. Coming off the fast gravel road and crossing the bridge into the wilderness, we got our first glimpse of the trail. Well, after a little bit of bombing some gravel roads and taking some access roads, we're now on the trail. So as I mentioned, we've done this trail before. And if you want to check that one out, it's up here. It was actually super wet when we did it because, well, it rained like the night before. So it's a little bit drier now, which will make it interesting because I want to do those hills unassisted without a winch. So maybe I'll have enough traction. I also aired down 2 more PSI, so maybe that will help. But right now we're just cruising through the beautiful Alberta foothills at this point and just driving through the forest. So we will catch up to you once we get up to that hill, which is probably going to be our first big obstacle. Leading this time, I could see the trail was a bit drier than last time, but still had standing water in spots. As we continued to push forwards, we could see that even though the Subarus were years apart, they both had no issues with this flat, rough section of trail. Although, we will have to see if this trend continues on the much more difficult uphill sections. And just like that, we got to our first one. Last time we were here, we got so close to making it over the rocks, but eventually needed the winch. This time, I was determined to change that. Climbing through the lower section, I was feeling good. Well, up until I used all my travel on the rock in the center of the trail, lifting the other wheel. Although, it wasn't quite time to break out the winch. Looking for a different route, I repositioned myself for a more aggressive line. And with a bit more power, I bounced up and over the rocks, and up the trail. No winch needed this time. With the Forester up, it was time to see what the Outback was capable of. And honestly, I wasn't sure if it was gonna make it. Taking more time to get up the lower sections, the Outback put the all-wheel drive system to work and slowly crawled up the rocks. Now, at the same obstacle that I faced, we took our time positioning the car to make it over the rocks.
but just as I did, it lifted the wheel. Instead of repositioning, we let the all-wheel drive figure itself out. And just like that, it climbed up and over, removing all doubts I had. Now I knew, with enough time and a bit of power from the turboed Boxer, the Outback was capable of much more than I imagined.
Well, as you guys know, I had to winch that last time, and this time I just gave it a little more beans and it climbed up there no problem. So good job, Forester. I did scrape a little on the rocker panel, like the plastic, but honestly, meh. I'm eventually gonna put sliders on it, so you gotta remove those anyway, so not a huge deal. There's now a giant rock in front of me, but yeah, I was impressed.
With this out of the way, the trail became much more rocky, slowing our progress until we made it to the next challenging climb. Just like the climb before, we had to use our winch on this climb on our last adventure. With the success of last hill, I was determined to make it up this one. So, with my determination, I slowly climbed up the loose rocks until I hit the ledge that I hit last time. Backing up, I moved over and went for another attempt, this time stopped by my torque converter, refusing to put power to the ground. Although, instead of pulling out the winch, I backed up once more and aimed for the far left, hoping that I would get enough traction. And with my foot to the floor, it slowly crawled up the ledge and up the trail. Now, it was the Outback's turn. Again, with the foot to the floor, the Outback's all-wheel drive system did work on the loose rock, sending power where it was needed and throwing rocks out from behind it. And with little hesitation and a single line change, the Outback climbed over the same ledge that I struggled on. We were now over the two hardest challenges.
There we go. We pretty much did our last hill climb. We got a little bit of trail up here, but the Forester made it. No winch. We won't need it up there. But I'm super impressed of how well this is doing, because as you guys know, last time we had to use a winch on this trail multiple times, and no winch, just a little more beans, and it is just crushing it. So it is doing awesome. But we might have found the limit for the Outback, because they are down there letting it cool off. So the CVT just got too hot. It was like, hey, too hot. So they're just letting it cool down while we have some snacks and breaks. But this was the last hill, not too difficult, but when the transmission is getting too hot, definitely time to take a break. So what we're gonna do is probably have a snack here, wait for the CVT to cool down, and then hit the rest of the trail, which is the nice little meadows. But I do gotta say, holy, that Outback is impressive. It's gotten lots of power, which is awesome, and the transmission is just obviously getting a little hot, but it's doing all of this, no winch, no poles, no needed. It just kind of curls up, and the transmission kind of figures out what's going on, and it sends the power to the correct wheels, which is awesome. And I think that power is a big thing to do with it, just because, as we know on the switchbacks with Adrian's Crosstrek, which has the 2-liter and a lot less power and no turbo, it just wasn't able to do it. It just kind of gave up, as you guys saw. Where here, the Outback kind of just sits there for a second and then kind of will figure out where to send the power and keep on climbing.
From there on, it was a beautiful ride down the other side and into the valley. Looking over into the mountain range that extended as far as the eye can see. Once we were down the mountain, we hit the wide open trail and headed towards the end. Dodging the ditches that came up every once in a while.
Well, we made it to our turnaround point, which you guys will know from last time is this really nice creek bed in here, or riverbed, that looks into the mountains. I got some really good shots last time of the drone going through here, but no drone shots today because I just seen a heli flying that away. It was unmarked, so not exactly sure what it was, but I got some good shots of the Forester lined up with these beautiful landscape of the fall colors and the riverbed. But what we're gonna do now is we're gonna head back down the trail. We're actually gonna take the same way back that we came on, just because, as you guys know from the previous trail run, the other way is absolutely disgusting and muddy, and we'd rather not do it today. So we now get to go down those hills.
And just like that, after enjoying the views for a bit, we pointed back towards the trailhead. Cruising back on the trail and climbing the mountain, we got to test our ability to take some cross-axle terrain. And like every time before, lifting a wheel proved not to be the way in the Forester. With a bit more of an angle and some more power, we climbed out of it, no problem. Well, on the other hand, the Outback walked right through it. Well, we had gravity on our side while we were going down, therefore making it easier, we still had to be cautious, as we would easily beach the cars if we didn't choose our line carefully. And with no issues, we continued making our way down. After making it through the last tough section, we could finally relax and cruise through the Alberta wilderness. Until hitting the gravel road and making our way back to the trailhead to air up.
And there we go. We are back at the parking lot and all aired up and ready to head home. But check it out. The Forester made it today without a winch, so we successfully got our revenge on that trail. We didn't have to use a winch. I just had a little more power and a little more aggressive lines, but we did it. And then super impressed with the Outback XT compared to Adrian's Crosstrek. Adrian's Crosstrek just didn't have the guts. This thing did everything that I did. I thought we were gonna have to pull it, but guess not, so that's awesome. And then the Gladiator just made us look bad because, well, it's the Gladiator with 35, so yeah. But Forester, a little bit dirty, a little bit muddy, but honestly it's not that bad. I did take a couple hits to some of the skid plates, so did the Outback, but you know, that's what happens when you're on the trail, and especially a trail like that. So we might have to straighten those out eventually, but other than that, that's it. That's all. So as always, peace out and stay humble.